All right, I think we are now recording, and a transcript will also be provided too. But this is the subcommittee meeting for the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board. And it is, let's see, August 1st, 2023, about 3:10 p.m. And with us today is Dr. Nikki Gonzalez, Dr. William Way. We've got Johnny Abed, and then Jenny Runyon from the US BGN. So the purpose of the subcommittee meeting was because on the last board meeting on June 20th, it was agreed upon that the formation of a subcommittee to further research and discuss the following proposals would be helpful. Those three proposals are US BGN case number 5765, which is the renaming proposal for Dead Mexican Gulch to Jose Velarde Gulch in Garfield, Colorado. The next proposal is US BGN case number 5758, which is the renaming proposal of Negro Draw to Robinson Draw in Montezuma County. And then the third matter is US BGN case number 5557, which is the renaming proposal of Chinaman's Canyon to Soyan Canyon in Los Animas County. So with that, I will hand it over. Well, I was going to say, Nikki, do you want to go ahead and maybe, I mean, I don't know with you and Bill, how you want to maybe, I mean, they could be discussed in that order if you'd like, or if you have a preference on which proposal to discuss first, I guess.
Okay, and so let me just, so the purpose of the meeting then is to, I guess I'm not really clear, I'm sorry. So are we supposed to just make a recommendation to the committee then? Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think there was some further research that we had received from History Colorado on a couple of these proposals.
Right.
I think Dead Mexican Gulch and Negro Draw. So I'm unsure if others have had the opportunity to review but yeah, I think that would be the purpose of this is to be able to make a recommendation. Yeah.
Okay, Johnny.
Oh, I'll defer to Dr. Way. He had his hand up first.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
William.
well, thank you, Johnny. It's very kind of you. I was about to say we can deal with the easy one, and that would be Chinaman Canyon. And the reason why I say it's easy is one, we've already dealt with the issue of place names, geographic features called Chinaman, right? We did that previously with Chinaman Gulch. And it was you agreed that we would rename it, right? We renamed it to Yensing Gulch. And I don't see, unless there's a lot of opposition that I haven't heard of, that we can simply agree to doing what we have done already. And that is renaming Chinaman Canyon to Toisan Canyon. And the reason for Toisan is that is the county in Guangdong Province, China, in the Pearl River Delta, where many, or most actually, many anyway, many of the Chinese workers had come. And if we can reach an agreement with that, we can then deal with the more perhaps difficult, complex anyway, issues of, Dead Mexican Gulch and Negro Draw. How about that?
Sure. Yeah. And Johnny, did you have a?
I was going to say that the board had expected a staff recommendation from the subcommittee on how to move forward on these three proposals. So then, to Dr. Way's point, we've already discussed Chinaman or Toisan several meetings. No opposition that we know of. Nobody's come forward. It's fully supported. And so if this group can just make a staff recommendation to the board for this one, then we can move forward to the other two.
Okay. Yeah. And the woman who proposed that, she wasn't there, right? She wasn't answering on the call?
Correct.
Well, she was there, but she was unable to access the meeting.
Right.
Peggy Law, who had submitted the request,
Okay.
was in attendance, but for some reason it was a technical issue. You're all familiar with that, right?
Yes.
Right. She could hear people, but she couldn't self-communicate.
And she did a wonderful presentation the meeting before. So
Yeah. Okay. So Johnny, what's the process then? Do we do like, motion and second and in this little group, or do we just say, hey?
no, we'll just say, hey, this is just a subcommittee meeting, just an open discussion about our path forward for these three.
Okay. Yeah. I say we go forward with it.
I second it.
Okay.
Okay.
Passed.
Jenny raised the hand.
Yeah.
Jenny has raised the hand.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wei. I feel like I obligated to just throw out that one question we had earlier in the review about Toisan being the correct spelling of, I guess, is it a canton or a district? You may remember that for some reason my coworker ran it by the BGN's Foreign Names Committee, and they did not list Toisan as a variant name or spelling for that particular area. And so we just kind of raised the question, could you just confirm that is in fact the
Yes, I will.
spelling?
I do confirm.
Okay, that's all we need. Thank you.
Yes, because Chinese names are a real problem.
Yeah.
A real,
Yeah,
They only
yeah.
make sense in Chinese.
Yeah,
All the Roman systems are a function of dialects
yeah.
and romanization systems.
Of course, we have a lot of linguists on our foreign names committee. In fact, we have a whole Asia division desk that their job is to work with the countries to get the romanization systems, and there's various. And I just don't want somebody at our meeting to at the 11th hour start fussing about the spelling and say, well, did anybody verify that's correct? Because we don't have any record of that spelling. And
Yeah, tell them one. We Coloradans verify it.
perfect. That's all we need. Cool.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Sure. And that's Toisan, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. One down, two to go. So let's talk about Dead Mexican Gulch then. So I think I sent you all some additional research. Actually, William, it was what, oh my gosh, her name is escaping me. History Colorado had done about a year.
Oh, Tom Noel?
No, I can't remember her name.
Oh.
Julie Peterson.
Oh, Julie Peterson. Yeah, great lady.
Yeah. So she drew up a whole document, and in that document, she unearthed the fact that, he probably killed, people. And and so I don't know, what do you all think of this one?
I think the name definitely has to change.
Yeah.
The only question is what to change it to, right?
Right.
So at our last meeting, Jenny brought up a good point in that the proposal is spelled one way. And if we vary off of that spelling, then it's a whole entire new proposal. So Jenny, can you remind us what the proposed spelling is?
Sure, Johnny. Yes, I have, Jose, no accent, not that matters, but Velardi, Belardi.
Okay.
There was references to the grave of Jose Velarde, Velarde. So I think you're right. This is definitely a case of this of two parts. One, should the current name be changed? And I would assume most would agree it should be. But the question is, and it's pretty well documented, I think, that Jose Velarde was in fact that dead Mexican.
Yeah.
But given his questionable background, do you want to, getting ahead of myself a little bit, but do we want the local press? Colorado Names Board has no issue naming Gulch for murderer. The perception is it time to remove his name entirely and come up with a completely different name? By voting the proposal down as it stands, does that look like you're supporting dead Mexican? Is the perception that, we can't unname a feature. So it either has to be the current name or the proposed name, or a third name is introduced, which hasn't happened yet. So sorry, Stacy, I cut you off. You had your hand up long before I started talking.
Oh, no, I just wanted to let everybody know that I have reached out to the Glenwood Springs City Council on this, the Rifle City Council, as well as the Garfield County Commissioners. While I haven't heard back yet from the Glenwood Springs City Council, it does sound like we may be receiving maybe, an official opinion or at least official feedback on this from the Garfield County Commission. They have it on their agenda for this coming Monday, August 7th, as well as the Rifle City Council, who have reached out to ask a number of follow-up questions. I don't have any, sort of official feedback at this time, but I do think we may get a little bit more there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would be good, I think, to have a little bit more information on the local level. The one linguist that I talked to here, she said, those names were interchangeable often, and the original is probably V. Velarde. So just throwing that out there.
By the way, can someone remind me about his being a murderer? No, since that's an issue, right? Exactly. What did he actually do? Because, justice during this period of time is always problematic.
Yeah. I have to go back and look at the original case brief that we put together. It's fairly lengthy and it's a lot of confusion. There's a number of newspaper articles from that period talking about this Jose Velarde individual. Was he honestly just a victim of being in the wrong place at the wrong time? Did he in fact fight back and murder a couple of people? It's definitely referenced to this. Looking now, the Dead Mexican Park's infamous Jose Velarde. So I'd have to refresh my memory on the actual case brief. That's why I think we were hoping that History Colorado might be able to confirm or deny the various stories that are out there.
Yeah, Julie found evidence that suggests that in the fall of 1915, Jose Velarde stole from and killed two of his colleagues and was sentenced to about 15 years in prison in the Colorado State Penitentiary in Canyon City. He was released after just a few years into the employ of Mr. Tynan, a guard at Canyon City, who was also, quote, extensively engaged in the sheep and ranching business in the vicinity of Yampa. Two articles from 1921 then record the death of Mr. Velarde by lightning strike.
Yeah. So it could be two different individuals, but it seems like the coincidences were enough that it almost implied it was all one and the same man. But if he committed a murder and did his time and was released and gainfully employed, maybe that's enough. I don't know. Yeah, I don't envy you on this one.
Well, let us consider the following. We want to change the name because the name as it stands is derogatory.
Mm-hmm.
We want to honor someone, right? Or a group of someones, right? And, if we were to refer to it as Mexican, I'm just suggesting, drop the dead man and call it Mexican Gulch as a suggestion. It would include him, right? Well, as a Mexican, and it would obviate any of the objections that people have. How can you name it after a thief, murderer, even a reformed, murderer? Right. That would require us to go back to the petitioner.
Right.
It's just to, you'll forgive me, I forgot it was a him or her, suggest to him or her that, hey, given the problematic, the problems associated with this name, would you mind terribly if we just referred it to Mexican Gulch or Mexican American Gulch? I mean, as a possible solution.
Yes, but especially if we know maybe his victims were maybe also Mexican, would that kind of help that it's not just him, but his colleagues that, I don't know. I mean, yeah, we're not supposed to suggest alternatives, but obviously no. We've talked about the fact that certainly, the Colorado Names Board is more than welcome to offer counter proposals, and you would become the proponent of record. Well, yeah, the first thing we go back to the petitioner, the proponent, and you're right, the name is Logan, so I don't know if it's male or female, but and ask how they feel about amending their proposal to simply Mexican, rather than the name that appeared on his little grave marker there at the gulch.
Yes.
You know, if he says yes, then we're all on board. If he says no and wants to stick to Velarde, then essentially you guys submit a counter proposal, really, and you have to choose between the two.
Mhm.
Since we're waiting for further information, we have time.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to get a little more information. And I just want to like work something out with you all. Like I'm torn. Maybe you can help me figure out what I'm trying to think here. Like on one hand, I'm like, are we honoring him, or are we just giving like a window into the history? Like I think it's a really interesting story.
I know you hate to lose the history, don't you?
I know.
You feel like even a name like Mexican Gulch is still going to probably have people wondering how it got that name, and you can still tell the story. But as William said, you're not maybe honoring him directly with the name. You're not promoting his activities, and because we don't know, and because we are sensitive a century later to what he might have done. But I think you're right. Let's wait and see what the county and city come back with. And it could be that, Velarde, the spelling has to be corrected too. If proponent, I don't know. Sorry, Stacy, you probably have some thoughts
Oh,
too.
no, I was just going to confirm for, you'd asked a question there, Jenny, like whether the two individuals that may have been killed that were colleagues, if they were also Mexican. And at least what we have in the packet from the Routt County Centennial, the 1915 article suggests that they were, that all individuals involved were Mexican.
Okay.
So I think our staff recommendation, or not, if we get there, is wait on the feedback from the Garfield County and did you say Glenwood Springs City Council, to see what they
City Council right now.
to see what they have to say about this feature. And I'm afraid though that, and I could be totally wrong, but I think that just removing the dead part isn't good enough, I guess, because Mexican to some is still derogatory, right? So then we're not really getting away from that derogatory name, in my opinion.
Yeah. It would be somewhat akin to replacing the Chinaman names with Chinese, which has happened in a few cases where we've been asked to just replace it with Chinese. And personally, I'm not sure that really solves the problem.
Right.
Yes, it keeps the history. Yes, it raises questions. Well, who were the Chinese? We go on in California right now. They're also wrangling with a Chinaman Canyon, and they've got a proposal to name it China Creek. Well, again, it's about as bland as you can get. So then they came back with maybe Chinese Miners Creek. So they seem to like, that seems to be the latest, because that does tell a story, right? It makes you, it gives you an image that, takes away the derogatory word, but keeps the history. So you're right.
So Jenny, is the history of sort of sheep herding in this particular area what we're trying to help people, sort of understand, some of this long history of how that works there?
I would assume so, somewhat. Yeah. I mean, clearly, talk about a century ago now, and obviously the state far better than I do, but certainly I would imagine that sheep herding was quite a industry back then. So again, we're not suggesting any names, but Sheep Herders Gulch. I don't know, sheep herd gulch. I don't know.
There were Basque. From what the linguist shared with me, it's a Basque name, and the name Velarde actually comes from Basque, meaning, she said, Prado de Oveja, which is sheep meadow, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Well, what about Sheep Meadow Gulch?
Yeah, we could do that as a board proposal.
Yeah.
Or, it could be sheep herder, which would be both Mr. Velarde and his victims. It could be sheep herder, and that way you get away from the Mexican, but you still tie in the historical intent that gets people thinking. So I mean, would it make sense to invite the petitioner to a future board meeting? And or would that happen
Sure.
maybe, or is it better at one of these subcommittee meetings? Just kind of see how willing
Yeah.
he is to
Yeah.
amend his proposal, and how much
Mhm.
research has he done into this Belardi story?
Mhm.
I think that would be great if we could invite him to one of these small meetings
Yeah.
first.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we have about 10 days between the August 7th city meeting and your next CGNAB meeting. So it sounds like it's not going to be voted on anyway in August. It sounds like we need more time.
Right.
Maybe you need more time. But this is just a thought. Maybe see if he'd be willing to meet with you all. And he must be wondering why it's still pending. That part we can explain. But well, he submitted it 18 months ago, February 2022. So it's not too bad.
And I'm pretty sure that I've invited him to a meeting when this was on there, but I'm going to double check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like he's in Grand Junction. So how far is that from Garfield County? Is that fairly local? I don't know. Like,
I
from
mean, it
Riceville.
would still be a little bit of a drive.
yeah.
But,
I was also
but,
I'm just curious of whether he has a local association with Garfield County. Like, why is he interested? Did he just find the name on a map and decided he was offended? Does he have a personal vested interest in this particular name, or the history, or the Belardi's family? And, yeah, I don't think he really says in his application. Sort of, why does he care about this name? Does it matter?
Yeah.
Does it matter? Do we care why proponents get involved? Does it
I
matter?
did invite him to the June meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll
did
reach out
you hear
again.
back from him at all, Johnny, or like in response, like that meeting time doesn't work because it's in the evening or something? That might help us figure out if maybe just a smaller meeting at a different time that works. And maybe Thursday might work better for him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll reach out and try to set something up
Okay. That's
if
great.
that's okay.
Yeah.
But looking back at the original proposal now, the one that came in 2022, actually did propose Velarde, Velarde.
Okay.
So somewhere along the way, we probably found the news article and he agreed to amend it to Belardi. So yeah, take the spellings with a grain of salt. It's quite possible that we got it wrong, or we made some assumptions that we should not have. What does he say? He says the name is both vague and pejorative. A grave is noted on the USGS map and indeed is still there. The grave provides the name of the individual buried there, and it makes sense to name after him rather than Dead Mexican Gulch. And that's pretty sure he signs the form, and that's about it. Nothing really elaborating on why he cares other than the name is offensive.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So Stacy, are you attending those meetings? The county commissioners or?
Yeah, I'm going to attend the one on Monday. And hopefully we'll be able to get some, verbal feedback right away from the commissioners. And my understanding is that we should expect a letter from the Rifle City Council. So I'm hoping to get a little bit more, once I can, on Monday, if the commissioners, Garfield County commissioners have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And then, I'll make the request again for a written opinion or written comments or feedback from the commission so that we have.
And they can submit a proposal too if they'd like to.
Yeah.
Right. Let them know they have the option of submitting another name. It takes us back to square one, but we'd rather go through all this back and forth before the final decision than after the fact. So is it worth notifying the proponent that it's on the county's agenda for next week? And I mean, touch base with him and just let him know that, there's still various options out there. And I don't know, or maybe wait till after the meeting and see what comes out of it, and then share that with him and see if he has any comments, because he may not want to budge. They may want to stick with Jose Velarde.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's reasonable and fair to let the proponent know ahead of time of an upcoming, public meeting that's going to discuss the proposal and that we've requested feedback. they do have a period of time there that provides public comments. But I mean, I don't think you'd get public comments during that. I don't think that the person could provide public comments during the actual specific time that's being discussed. It's only the commissioners. So, yeah.
Okay. Is it appropriate for us to share the research that Julie Peterson gave us with the county commissioners?
I mean, that was a question that I kind of wanted to get answered to with everybody, whether this follow information should be posted on, our website too. How that's typically handled, I'm not quite sure, but certainly, I'd be happy to forward the additional information along. What I had provided to each of the local governments was the packet excerpt that we already had online. So not this additional information.
Yeah. I would hope so. I mean, is Julie serving in an official capacity? I mean, she's a official state employee of History Colorado, or I mean, it's one thing for an individual who does independent research might not be willing to share their findings, but if she did the research as a state employee, I assume that's public information, right? But I would clear it with Julie and say, are you okay with us sharing your findings with the county? I can't imagine she would object, because it does help round out the story.
Yeah. By the way, for your information, she's moved on to the Natural History Museum, the Museum of History and Science.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Would that still be considered a state government job, or is that private now? I don't know.
No, it's a state. I think it's state.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she would still be accessible through the state email system. You could track her down.
I think I have her phone number, so I can even text her. I'm pretty sure I have her phone number.
Yeah.
Well, you could get her permission. That she gets credit for the research she's done. I think it's only appropriate. She'd be given credit, and if there's anything in there she doesn't want to be shared, now's her chance to speak up and redact anything that doesn't want to be public. But chances are it's mostly newspapers and state archives and documents that anybody could find with a lot of effort. Right. Kudos for her for finding it.
Yeah, she did a good job.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. All right. So that's how we'll proceed then. We'll hear from Rifle and we'll hear from Garfield and then see what they have to say and go from there.
Yeah, Johnny, should we just coordinate offline and reaching out to the proponent then to?
Yes, definitely. I'm sorry I stepped in there. Sorry, Stacy. I was just used to doing that. So
no,
yeah,
I know.
We'll
Yeah,
coordinate
absolutely.
to do that.
I just figured we could send probably one email and not
yes,
two.
Of course.
All right. Okay, so the third one is Negro Draw and to Robinson Draw, and Julie also sent some good research on this one. And she so I think the conflict or the question was, is it Robinson or Robeson, right?
Right.
And Julie found Robeson, which is not what the proponent said, right? Right.
Let me double check that. Yeah, it was very, very inconsistent. Yeah, I think we have Robinson is what we proposed.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that's what, sorry, get Robinson Draw, yeah. The Forest Service, well, the note I have from the Forest Service says, originally submitted Robinson, but maybe leaning toward Robeson, continuing to do research. And this was very, there was definitely a Robinson Ranch named for James Robinson who homesteaded there. But if you look more in genealogy records online, it seems to be Robeson. It's more common. Yeah, I think Robinson Ranch appears on USGS maps. But who's to say, in homestead records in 1889 or census records, who's to say the census taker got it right. Probably assumed it was Robinson based on, the more common spelling. And we all know census records are not gospel when it comes to accuracy. But as I recall, I think the one issue we had with this one was, the Negro draw. There's a story there. It was probably named for, a Black individual or a Black family. And best as we can tell, Robinson or Robeson might have been a white man. I found a photo of him online, and he's clearly a white man. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter replacing a Negro name with a white man's name. Is that going to cause any heartburn? Is it the same individual? Here we go again. Exactly who are we honoring here?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And also, one thing that Julie mentions, and I think the other sources mentioned that too, is the document she consulted with a colleague at the Office of Anthropology and Historic Preservation who located a cultural resource survey on the Lost Canyon Stock driveway, which intersects with the property identified as Negro Draw. The document confirms the association with the Robeson name, but she believes that the term Negro may simply be the Spanish word for black, perhaps describing the soil.
Right. We do hear that from time to time, that especially in the Southwest, it might just be an instant Spanish reference to the color of the soil or the color of the water. But does that mean it should be retained? It's, present day perception. And if someone's perceived that they're offended by that, is that a good enough reason to change the name, whether or not it has a perfectly innocent history?
Right.
And, the only way we can tell is, if the name clearly had the N word as a variant, then the chances are it was not just for the color of the soil. And let me double check the database. I don't remember if this one has the N word as a variant, because that word would pretty much show it's not just for the color. Let me see here.
Actually, I want to make a technical point, and that is, if it was supposed to be Spanish, right, Nikki, it wouldn't be Negro, it'd be Negra.
Yeah, Negro or Negra.
Yeah.
Depending on what it was.
Yeah, it'd be Negra as the way it would be normally pronounced. And Negro is the term that we use in America to refer to Black people. I just wanted to point out the difference.
Yeah, but I think as an adjective, a Spanish adjective, if it's referring to a masculine noun, it is Negro. It is Negro.
So is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think you're right, Nikki. Yeah, that's what I've heard too. And again, it comes down to present day perception. If somebody in 2023 is offended by that name on a map, no matter what the history is that reason enough? We've heard that with some of the other words now that are being suggested for change. We have a lot of place names out there, coon, and people say, well, it could be raccoon. It could be a Chinese surname, but in 2023, I'm offended by that word. I want it gone. I don't care what the history is. That's what we're hearing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, were we going to get further consultation on this one? Stacy, do you remember? Or Johnny?
I'm not sure. I'd have to rewatch the last commission meeting again to double check that, but I didn't receive, I guess, instruction from coming on board just a few weeks ago that we were doing further follow-up on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't a response from the county, so whether you want to give them one more try, but it'd be nice. Yeah. So what was Julie's recommendation? She said it was leaning more toward Robeson.
Robeson, yeah.
Yeah. Thinking that Robinson was just a innocent, typo, because Robinson is more common.
Yeah, and she said history. I mean, I could resend you the document that she produced, but she said History Colorado also. I mean, there's a couple of different points she makes. History Colorado holds a manuscript collection from Montezuma County between 1916 and 44, and 2 letters to then state historian Leroy Haffen from Anna Robeson, who might be a descendant of James F.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which technically means, you know, if we're going to amend the proposal to Robeson, we have to get the proponent's permission. But this is the same proponent who, you might recall, submitted those Clay Mesa and Clay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the student submitted that one, but she submitted a bunch of different changes. And she's the one that first proposed hops as a replacement for all these words to promote the Colorado's hops and beer industry. And everybody kind of said, no, no, no. And even the county said, no, no, no. And so she seems very amenable to whatever, I think she said in the past, whatever it takes to remove that name. You know, if if you can come back and say Robeson is preferable, as long as you approve that, I just want Negro gone. You know, I think will be her response, is my guess. So it wouldn't take much to, you know, just ask her. And she, I think, has attended at least one Colorado board meeting, I think, when those Mesa names came up. I seem to recall. So that would just be a formality. And the Forest Service is on record as supporting Robinson. So we'd have to get, the one thing we didn't talk about last night, Stacey, when you and I talked about the process, is really the importance of the Federal Land Management Agency. Obviously, you're making recommendations for state use, but as far as the U.S. board is concerned, the input of the federal agency is very, very important. And this one and Toyson Canyon, I believe, are also on Forest Service land. And you have a gentleman, Jesse Nett, typically attends your CGNAB meetings and is a great resource. So anytime there's a feature on federally managed land, make sure you have their input before you all vote. Technically, it's supposed to come from the Washington, D.C. U.S. BGN member for the agency, but Jesse provides a recommendation from the local forest ranger up through his office in Denver up to Washington, which then comes back to you. So in your little checklist we talked about last night, make sure that the federal agency is also on there, because they're very, very important to the U.S. board. They attend our meetings, you know, they can. So in a case like this one, if we do amend it to Robeson, we'd want to get the Forest Service to take one more look and amend their recommendation from Robinson to Robeson.
Thank you for that, Jenny. That's helpful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
And Jesse will be at the Cogna conference in September, so you can meet him there.
Good.
Okay. Then I say we see if the proponent is willing to change it to Robeson and then get Jesse's input.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then it's up to you if you want to contact Montezuma County one more time, give them another chance to weigh in, or if you feel like they've had, let me see here, if we contacted them twice, gave them a deadline. Now it has been over a year, so it's possible there's a new chair or a new county administrator. You know, they might. It's up to you, Stacey, if you feel like trying the county one more time, or you feel like we've done due diligence. We gave them a date, the deadline, and said if you have no opinion, no response, we'll assume you have no opinion. So they've had their chance. It's really up to you if you think try one more time.
I mean, I think really, you know, I'd be interested in hearing sort of, you know, the greater, I guess, committee folks here and board folks here, because, you know, I don't think that there's a significant, you know, I guess, difference between it's a slight, you know, spelling change.
True.
It's not necessarily the underlying, you know, pieces of the proposal that we're concerned about there. So it's like, in that sense, there's nothing substantive that's really changing with the proposal outside of that, you know, correct name. Spelling. So I guess, you know, is that adequate outreach for, you know, we have tried 2 times to reach.
They didn't respond at all. And I mean, even if the county came back and said, no, we don't want to rename Negro Draw, would you really go along with the county? I mean, at this point, it sounds like you've all made the decision the name needs to change. It's just a matter of what it should change it to. So what could the county really say other than we support it? If they say we don't support it, are you going to say, well, we're not going to change it then? You know, I mean, really?
I mean, would it be appropriate if we just maybe sent something to sort of close the loop on it, to say that, we've had a year or however much time of discussion on this particular proposal to the county. Right now, we haven't received any information to sort of lean away, or change the proposal, but for the naming, the actual spelling, I guess. So, wanted to at least update the county commission on this.
Because once the BGN makes the final decision, we do notify the county after the fact of the outcome, and we don't really want to blindside them. And given that it has been quite a while, it might be good for them to give a heads up that it's coming up soon on your docket and you're close to making a decision, and give them one last chance. But I would almost phrase it like, we will assume you have no objection unless we hear otherwise.
Yeah, because you've reached out to them, and I know I have reached out to them.
Okay.
And so
what point do you say enough is enough? We tried.
Right.
And a good faith effort.
Right.
Yes, I fully agree with what's been said, and it's always good to be able to say, well, look, we did what we were supposed to do.
Right.
We tried to keep you informed.
Right.
Yeah.
If you chose not to respond, then too bad.
No.
in so many words.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
We'll plan to do that. We'll put that on our next steps list, along with reaching out with the proponent on, the actual spelling change there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
and again, my only concern is if somebody on your board questions why you're replacing, a Negro name with a white man's name, but clearly, you have an association with the feature, and we may never know the history of the current name. And it's if Julie couldn't find it, and there's no obvious connection to a Black family at the time, then if the goal is to get rid of the name, you might not always replace it, one-to-one with a name that, if we knew how the individual was, if we knew the family, the story, then obviously that would be the first choice. But if we don't, there is a connection to the Robeson family. So, and it's burdens on you guys to convince your colleagues on the CGNAB that this is the best available. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Okay. So just then we completed the Toison Canyon, and then we all have our assignments for the other two.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Okay, terrific. So I see you guys. Well, Johnny, when do we meet again? August?
17th?
Okay. Good.
Evening,
See you
I
August
guess, right?
17th.
Holy cow.
17.
Soon. Be safe out there.
Thank you. You too.
All right, everyone. Take care.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank
See ya.
you.
Thank you.
And then make sure you stop the recording.